Hi, thanks for tuning in to this video. So just a quick reminder that all the information in these videos is contained in my Synthesis Explained book, which I kind of went through in detail in the previous episode on part 6. So if you want to watch the beginning of that, I'll kind of go through how that works. I won't go through it again now, but it is available to my Patreon subscribers, and I'll put a bit of information about it in the description below. So what we're looking at in this video is pulse width modulation. So if we go over, we'll start on analog as we have in previous videos, and we're going to change our oscillator to, well, let's just leave it on like sawtooth for now. If you notice when we're on sawtooth, this section down here is grayed out, okay, and on any of the oscillators, okay, it's grayed out apart from the square wave, also known as the pulse wave. What we can do with the square wave is we can sort of change the shape of the oscillator, or the shape of the waveform, which will affect its sound. So at the moment I've got the pulse width set on 100%. Okay, and if we do this with this oscilloscope here, you can see the shape. So if I just change it over to a sawtooth, okay, you can sort of see the shape of the different oscillators there. Okay, so if I start affecting this here, the width of the pulse, you'll see these move and get thicker and thinner. Okay, so right down the bottom it gives a very thin sort of sound. Okay, and that movement of the width of the rectangles basically is what is known as pulse width modulation, if we sort of automate that. Got the same thing over on the Electro. So it's not called the square wave here, it's called pulse on this one. Oh, hang on, we've still got pitch stuff going off from the previous video. Right, there we go. Let's do the same thing. Let's bring up the oscilloscope so we can just see what it looks like on this one. Okay, now I've actually got some pulse width modulation going off there, so you can see that moving. Okay, because I'm using that with LFO1, which I'm going to do in a sec. Let's get rid of that for now. Okay, so we can change the pulse width by this dial here on this synth. Let's just move that out of the way. So if we start right down the bottom, turn it up a little bit, so you can see it getting thinner and sounding thinner. Okay, now some synths will go to absolute silence when it kind of cuts off completely, which is quite a nice effect you can use whilst modulating the pulse width. So let's just go back over to analog and we'll affect it with the LFO. Now we're going to look at LFOs in future lessons, but basically for now, just if you don't know what LFOs are, it's basically it's going to turn a dial for us, right? So we're going to use the shape of this sine wave here, to basically make this go up and down automatically. Okay, so what we're going to do is dial in some LFO amount here. In fact, let's put it right up to the top, right on 1. Okay, so hopefully you can see now as I hold my finger down on the key, that is moving automatically. So we can change it, we'll make it go faster or slower. Okay, let's change this so we're not synchronized. And that's kind of like the classic pulse width modulated sound. So it just gives the sound a nice bit of movement, a bit of fatness. And that basically is what pulse width modulation is. It's just using either an LFO or an envelope to change the width of the pulse wave. So we can do the same thing on here. Let's use... in fact, let's use this envelope for a change. So if we take this over to pulse width on oscillator 1, and then we'll just mess about with the dials a bit, and we'll see what we can get. Not a lot so far. Okay, let's turn that up. Okay, so that's giving us, I mean, the difference between using an envelope and an LFO is, with an envelope, it will just cycle through once and then it will stop. Okay, until we re-trigger the sound again. With an LFO, it's a repeating pattern. So if you want it just to do a single kind of bit of pulse with at the beginning of the sound, then use an envelope. If you want it to be constant, use an LFO. Or we could do a mixture of the two. Okay, so that's quite nice. You get that kind of, that sort of fast bit at the beginning and then the movement with the LFO coming in afterwards. So it's just about experimenting with these things really and just coming up with something that you like the sound of. And we've got the same thing over on the hardware synth. So let's just turn all of these down. So we're looking at the third oscillator here is the square wave or the pulse width. Oh, hang on. Let's get rid of that. And we'll just get a simple thing there. Okay, now again, we've got to use the little patch bay to do this. We'll do it with the LFO. So we're going to take the LFO out. And then we've got one here that says, what you're looking for is something that says PWM, because that stands for pulse width modulation. So we're going to use the LFO. I'm going to use the triangle wave on this one. So if we turn the amount up, hopefully you can start to hear that now. And then we can change the amount. Let's just take the LFO off for a sec. So what happens on here is the top dial here changes the width of the pulse. Okay, so basically what's happening is the LFO is sort of doing this for us. Okay, so it's kind of doing that. So if we turn that amount up to full, okay, so you get the idea. Pulse width modulation, it's a great sound, gives a nice bit of movement and fatness to the sound. So hopefully that's given you a little bit more insight into the wonderful world of pulse width modulation. And yeah, if you've got any questions about that, then stick them in the box below. If you've got any suggestions for future videos as well, things that you want me to cover either on synthesis or anything else, then I'll be happy to try and sort that out for you. And usual things, like, subscribe, share the videos around, hit that bell button so you get notifications as and when I upload new videos. And if you want to consider supporting the channel, then click on the link in the information card that will have appeared by now, or in the description of the video there will be a link in there as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 8 where we are going to look at the wonderful world of sub-oscillators.